So our final talk is from Sabine Ohse, who's the head of the notified body IVD of MDC medical device certification since November 2015. And she also works as technical expert and lead auditor for products listed in Annexes 2A and B of the IVD directive, as well as for quality management systems under ISO 13485, as well as ISO 9001. From 2013 to 2015, she was lead inspector in the pre-qualification of diagnostics at the World Health Organization. Some years of experience as head of notified body, she was at the BSI Group Germany, and several years she also spent at the IVD industry in the RAQA field. And now she will give us a view as a notified body. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction, and thank you for inviting me to present this short overview. It was up to me to decide what I wanted to talk about. So this is a little bit different to what we saw today, and I hope you can all see my presentation right now because I shared my screen.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. So I decided to have this topic clarified to all of you because there seems to be a bit of confusion about what happens when and how do we do the transition period between 2022 and 2024 when all products have to come under the IVD regulation. I think this is really a lot of information. So I give you an overview of the timelines, describe Article 110, the scope of application, contractual requirements with your notified bodies, activities during the transition period, and the specific IVDR requirements. And I hope that I can answer some of the questions that were actually in the chat. Bear with me, it's going to be a bit boring. It's not that fantastic technical expertise as presented by the other reference, but I hope it's not too boring. So until May 2025, products certified under directives and products certified under the regulations will coexist on the market. We saw that in the timelines presented by Michael Meyer. So we have both. And in the first place, manufacturers thought that notified bodies would be assigned with a different notified body number to differentiate between products under IVDD and products under IVDR, but this is not the case. So we will have our existing notified body number for the IVDR as well. Rules for designating notified bodies are more rigorous, and as Michael already states, some might vanish and some might disappear, but all of the rules apply in the same way, which is quite a relief because under the IVDD, the rules for notifying the quality management or the quality assurance bodies, notified bodies for the medical device directives were depending on the member state competent authority. So the rules applied differently to France, to the Eastern European countries, to UK, Spain. We had slight differences in the view of the notified body and also in the qualification requirements for the auditors and experts, and also to the procedures and processes inside the notified body. Now it's all the same. And we are quite happy to be in Germany because our German competent authority, as well as the MHRA in England, they had the highest requirements for the notified bodies at all. So we don't worry that much. For the manufacturer, we have already learned that they need more stringent criteria, particularly terms of clinical and performance evaluation requirements. So this is not new. We heard that already. For us, it is questionable if all devices currently available on the market can be certified under the new regulation in time, specifically when designation of notified bodies takes longer than foreseen and if EU reference laboratories are rare. And this is also, we hope, I address this to Michael Nübling, we hope that reference laboratories will be ready right in time. So for example, at this time, there is no reference laboratory nominated, and Class D devices cannot be certified in accordance with IVDR due to the lack of reference laboratory. To avoid market disruption and unavailability of medical devices, manufacturers may, under certain conditions, continue to produce compliant devices under the directive and place them on the market after May 26, 2020. And this will be allowed for sale to end customers until May 27, 2025. This was also in the presentation of Michael Meyer. So there are quite a few rules to consider. The IVDR will replace the directive. There will be a 5-year transition period. We all know the date. It's 26th of May 22, and then we have the date of application. And after that date of application, there are some rules for products already listed on EC certificates, and those products will have to be Annex 2, List A or List B, or products for self-testing. Then they will be mentioned on an EC certificate. And these rules apply to those products. The sell-off provision had been presented by Michael Meyer very shortly. So any devices that are still within the supply chain and have not reached their final user as being ready for use, for example, a hospital, on May 27 in 2025, can no longer be marketed. I think this is very clear. So as long as it sits in your warehouse or it sits at a distribution warehouse after May 27, it cannot be used. If it is with a hospital or a big clinic or a big laboratory, it still can be used. This is an exemption specifically for products with a longer expiration date and a longer shelf life, such as, let's say, lyophilized products of high risk. Certificates issued by the notified bodies in accordance with the directive from May 2017 on will be valid until the end of the period indicated on the certificate, but it shall not exceed 5 years. So from 2017, certificates of 5 years, 2022, will remain valid. However, in the meantime, we can still issue certificates for a period of 5 years, but they will become invalid on May 26, 24. A device with a certificate that was issued under this regulation may only be placed on the market or put into service if it continues to comply with the directive and not the IVD regulation. And this is very, very important, provided that there are no significant changes in the design and the intended purpose. Because if the product that is listed on an EC certificate undergoes a significant design change or a change in the intended purpose, then it will immediately fall under the regulation, and you would have to certify, you have to apply for certification according to the IVD regulation with your notified body. Post-market surveillance. Everything which is explained in Annex 3, market surveillance, vigilance, registration of economic operators and of devices, apply in place of the corresponding requirements in the directive. So all of these adverse event notification requirements shall apply as of May 2022, although the products shall underlie the directive. It's a bit tricky. We will be responsible as a notified body for the appropriate surveillance of the quality management system and the technical documentation. So in this period of 2 years, for an existing EC certificate, the notified body will perform surveillance audits and also review technical files as appropriate to understand that or to make sure that the products still are in compliance with the directive. In case there are changes, you would have to notify, and then it shall be decided what needs to be done by the notified body. This is again an example that how the products mentioned on an EC certificate can be made available on the market or put into service until 27th of May 2025. This is all in Article 110. And I attended another meeting where one of the consultants clearly stated that as a manufacturer or an RAQ, a responsible person for the manufacturer, it would be very helpful to read the whole thing, not just the annexes, because all of the details can be found in the respective articles. Although there are so many of them, it might be useful to spend a day or two reading through that and identifying problems that you might have in fulfilling the requirements of the regulation. All products which are covered by a certificate and products for self-testing, so it's list A, list B, which are only a few, I could name them all, and products for self-testing undergo notified body oversight. Then all other products need to fulfill the IVDR by May 2022. And it's important to understand that there is no grace period and there is no grandfathering. I think this is very important to everyone, that we can, the competent authorities will not accept any product with a CE without the 4-digit number of a notified body unless it is a Class A device. I also wanted to point out here that a Class A device has to be differentiated. So if it is a sterile device, like sample containers, then the notified body shall be involved and looking at those parameters required to ensure the sterility is correct. Please keep that in mind. So it's not just instruments, it can also be containers that, for example, blood containers that bear the sterile sign, and these containers, although Class A, have to undergo notified body review. As of 26th of May 2022, notification in respect to notified body in accordance with the directive become void. And important part here, the surveillance of your existing IVD certificates that are Annex 4 without 4 and 6, Annex 4.4 for products, Annex 5 and 7 and 6, if available, they have to be maintained under a private business contract with the notified body, because the notified body will not be designated under the IVD directive any longer as of May 2022. I think this is quite a big change to your contractual agreements with your notified body. Okay, what do we do during the transition period? We have to do surveillance audits, unannounced audits, subcontractor audits, non-substantial changes to be reviewed, and we have to look at the specific IVDR requirements, which is vigilance and post-market surveillance. And these follow IVDR rules. So for the surveillance audits, we would follow the requirements of the directive. And for the post-market surveillance, we would follow the requirements of the regulation. So the audit team really has to put their heads around all of those requirements and come on site and audit according to different rules for your products. What we do, surveillance audits, we look into what, I think we heard that already, post-market surveillance, market surveillance, vigilance, registration of economic operators and of devices, and also we are checking the possibility to perform combination audits, covering both the directive and the regulation. And please keep in mind that this will need to be done on an annual basis, like today. So audits and surveillance audits have to take place in an annual schedule, at least once per year. Unannounced audits. We have unannounced audits for cause and unannounced audits based on the recommendation 2013 EU. So this is something that is already performed, also for products listed on IVD certificates according to the directive. We have to perform unannounced audits according to a plan. And now we do it in a period of 5 years. For the regulation, we will have to perform unannounced audits every 3 years for Class D devices and once every 5 years for Class C devices. And I agree with Michael Meyer, it's a lot of work for the notified body that you have to do this for Class D devices in a period of 3 years, which raises the amount of work and the resource planning for audit performance. Also, we have to decide whether to visit the manufacturer itself or their critical subcontractor or crucial suppliers. In relation to the IVDR, we shall audit post-market surveillance, vigilance, and registration of economic operators and of the devices. The Commission really wants here the notified body to have an oversight of what the manufacturers, under their strict review, what they are doing. And we have to provide information to the Commission through EUDAMED database for the safety and performance review reports. We do subcontractor audits during the transition period. We will not cover IVDR specific requirements, but in case of vigilance, we shall use IVDR specific requirements if we have to ensure that the product has been recalled or field safety notices issued appropriately. Of course, this type of audit shall be planned in accordance with the rules for the notified bodies, and some of our customers welcomed us once saying, "Oh, a surprise audit." So we will not issue, of course, we will not issue an audit plan as usual for a standard routine audit. It really is a surprise audit. We will come on site and hope that everything works smoothly. But from my experience, I can say that all manufacturers nowadays are well prepared to perform and to support unannounced audits as a usual normal audit. Most of them would even have a procedure for this. So if you are not prepared, please look into your system how to deal with unannounced audits and how to handle the requirements during those unannounced audits. Notification of changes. As I said, it's in the regulation that there shall be no significant changes to the design and intended purpose of the product. A proper definition of a significant change under the IVDD was and is still challenging, so there is some guidance what a significant change might be. In any case, it is always good to talk to the notified body, and we discussed that earlier, to talk to the notified body what you intend to do and what the notified body would say if it is a significant change or not. Please do not submit any change. Please just inform us in case of a significant change. The usual changes to the quality management system, resources, personal resources, change in responsibilities, and things like that, they would be covered during a usual audit so that it can be mentioned in the audit report. You don't need to notify your notified body of all of these small changes. You should have a system in place about change request and the control of changes where you could identify if the notified body shall be asked if a change request shall be submitted to the notified body or not. This will also be audited during a usual surveillance audit. There is no extension to the intended purpose possible. Limitations of the intended purpose are acceptable. So if you take, for example, sample material out of the intended purpose, it's fine. If you want to add sample material, it's not. Usually changes to the quality management system are not covered and can be implemented. If significant changes are determined on-site or off-site in regards to the design of the intended purpose, we would be required to write a major nonconformity. So if you, under an existing EC certificate during the transition period, you implement a significant change without notification or approval by the notified body, this is going to be a major nonconformity. Remediation is required. So maybe you would have to just revert the change to what it was before. It's always good to talk to your notified body. Although no significant change of the design or intended purpose, some changes can be handled, which are organizational changes, new addresses, extension of production areas. So if you have an additional laboratory or an additional clean room, new products within the certified range. And I think this was one of the questions. If there is an English version of your self-test or an additional version that is distributed somewhere else, then it will be considered an addition to a certified range. Supplier change and change of packaging subcontractor with identical process parameters. So this is just an overview of what is possible and what is prohibited. And then we will look into post-market surveillance. For each device, you need a plan. You have to establish that post-market surveillance system. It has to be documented, maintained, and updated, and also a report needs to be available. And this will be reviewed during the audit. So it's not just part of the technical file review, it is part of the audit regarding the quality management system and implementation of the process and not of the documentation. This is one of my most favorite things, the periodic safety update report. And this is completely new because this was not there in the directive. You have to have that as a result of the post-market surveillance plan. It needs to be prepared for class C and D products for each device or category group of devices and has to be updated annually. The contents are defined in Article 81, and for Class D devices, you have to submit that to the notified body for evaluation, and the evaluation results are available to the competent authorities via UDAMID by the notified body. So this is a very transparent way of showing that your product continues to be compliant with the performance and safety requirements. I think the workload is very high on the side of the manufacturer. The vigilance cases are covered under Article 82. The timelines are clearly stated, which was formally done in MEDEF documentation, which makes it identical for all member states. This is one that may also contribute to high workload on the side of the manufacturer or the regulatory affairs department. You have to have a system in place to understand the trends, if there are non-serious incidents and how to deal with those. So you really have to do a post-market surveillance rather than an individual look from year to year at what happens. The manufacturers shall report using UDAMID as soon as it becomes available. I just wanted to let you know that under the medical device regulation, MDC as a notified body will issue certificates as we are notified against the MDR already, but we cannot notify to UDAMID as UDAMID is not operating at this time. So we have to check, we have to take records of which certificates were issued when, to what manufacturer and which products, and then we shall notify in UDAMID as soon as it becomes active. Serious incidents and field safety corrective actions, it's one of those things that is already applicable during the transition period, even if your products are still listed on an EC certificate according to the directive. And I don't want to read through this, because you can see this in Article 84 of the IVDR. Vigilance data has to be analyzed, and the Commission will review from time to time the data available in EUDAMID in order to identify trends, patterns, and signals in the data that may reveal new risks or safety concerns. So there is an oversight of the Commission and the Member States of the vigilance database to take action if necessary, if there is a sign of products not complying. We had a joint activity related to borreliosis tests last year, as some member states had noted that products had failed. So there was a big hubbub in the EU about borreliosis tests and their safety and performance. And of course, notified bodies had been asked to answer questions related to borreliosis tests under their surveillance, which is quite a lot of work. So in case there is something wrong, notified bodies will be asked by the Commission to support with data and information related to technical files reviewed for the manufacturer. Implementing acts, we are still waiting. Detailed arrangements, aspects necessary for the implementation of Articles 80 to 84. So we are looking forward to receiving that. And then what I wanted to share with you is it is very important to understand that after 26th of May 2022, no new devices can be placed on the market under the IVD directive. Devices certified under the directive can only be placed on the market if they continue to comply with the directive, and audits shall be performed. Also, no significant changes in the design and intended purpose are allowed, but in that time, IVDR requirements shall apply with respect to post-market surveillance, vigilance, the registration of devices and economic operators. This will be evidenced by procedures and respective records during the notified body audits. I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm ready to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
How would unannounced audits work for
Yeah.
manufacturers outside the European Union? I would like to state that unannounced audits already apply under the directive. And of course, the notified body has to make arrangements to ensure that these can be organized. And there was a lot of discussion about unannounced audits in countries where you need visa to enter the country. So it's still a big problem because for the visa, sometimes you have to get an invitation, you have to come into the country, and then it is not a surprise anymore. So what we usually do is we organize several audits in a row and get that visa for a time period of, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks. And then we have the announced audit, a routine audit at one manufacturer, and 2 and 3 audits in that country for unannounced audits for other manufacturers. Why do you think they would have an advantage? Diana Ramirez asked if stated that in case manufacturers outside the European area have an advantage. Why would you think that? It's not a surprise anymore. Yeah, it's true. It's true. It happened to me that I went to Russia to do audits, and of course it's like in the European Union as well. So manufacturers know each other. It's a small community. It's smaller than we think, although we now know that there are more than we are aware of. But the ones that we know, they know each other. So they would talk about an audit team coming on site, and then the others would know as well. So there's always this assumption that, we wondered whether we would have an unannounced audit after you audited company, our friends in, I don't know, let's say Moscow. Yes. But to be honest, all manufacturers at this time are prepared to have unannounced audits. And it's like with the tests at the end of the school year, you know they are coming, so you prepare. But if it's not at the end of a year, it's sometimes between the year. This was the intention by the Commission. The manufacturer has to prepare it at all times and not just at time of the audit. This was the intention of the unannounced audits. And also because we only sample technical files, we just check the technical file if it had been changed, if it was up to date, and if the products are manufactured in accordance with the approved technical file.
Sabine, this is Michael. It's also a thing is unannounced. I mean, if you know 10 days or 15 days before an audit that the audit will happen, and you have a big mess,
Yeah.
you are anyway unable to clear up. I mean, look
Yeah.
at the US FDA; they give you 6 weeks.
Yeah, and it's
And
still
if you get your invitation to be visited by the FDA and you have nothing and they will come in 6 weeks, I mean, what do you want to repair? So I don't think it's really an advantage being outside the European Union and maybe being warned 5 days before by a competitor that an audit team is traveling around. This will not make a difference.
no, it's true. And in fact, it is now going on since 2013. So as I say, most manufacturers are aware that there will be unannounced audits, and they are prepared. They have a team of people welcoming the audit team, putting them into a meeting room, and then asking for the right people to come on site. So
The scope is also limited of those unannounced audits.
of course, it's just one or two products. So it's very product related. It's not the full quality management system. So we only look into the manufacturing files and the quality control files, and the evidence that the product is still manufactured under the same rules as documented in the technical file that was approved by the notified body.